spooky friends, we're on day 22 of our 31 days of horror movie villains, and today we're talking about Pearl. Pearl was portrayed by Mia Goth in both X and the prequel Pearl. In Pearl, we learned a lot of her backstory. It was 1918, World War I is happening, and there's also a pandemic happening. Pearl lives on the farm with her two parents who are German immigrants, and they're kind of isolated on this farm. Her father is paralyzed, so he cannot speak, and she lives with her kind of overbearing mother who's very strict. Pearl is an interesting character. She is completely wrapped up in her imagination, and all she wants to do is to become famous and to get off the farm. And so she constantly is kind of daydreaming about getting away, becoming the star. She truly believes in herself, but her mother does not. At the beginning of the movie, we see her like dancing around for her farm animal friends because those are basically her only friends. We see how completely unhinged she is very quickly because like a goose wanders into the barn while she's dancing, and it's like it stole the spotlight, so she takes care of that goose and feeds it to her best friend, an alligator that lives in the swamp nearby. So we learn like Pearl's a dangerous person and she has really no regard for life. We see her interact very strangely with her father. Like she takes baths in front of him and he's just kind of stuck there because he's paralyzed. So it's just kind of awkward. We also learn that she has a husband and he's off at the war right now. So she is just kind of stuck there on the farm with her parents. One day her mother sends her into town to go get morphine for her father. So she goes into town and of course she gets the morphine, but she has to stop at the movie theater because she loves watching the pictures. So after the movie she gets up and she's looking at a program and the projectionist comes out and like starts talking to her. They kind of flirt a little bit. He gives her a still from one of the film reels and he kind of lets her know that she'd come back at any time to come knock on his door. So while she's riding her bike home, she's really happy, but then the little still gets blown off into the wind, goes off into the field, and she sees a scarecrow like doing stuff with the scarecrow because her imagination is crazy, and then she instantly encounters screaming, "I'm married!" And then she goes home, but not after stealing the scarecrow's hat. At home, of course, her mom is mortified that she showed up with like a dirty hat. So she's like, "Why did you bring that in here?" Her mom knows like something's up. So she sends her away with no dinner. Pearl sneaks away and goes sees the projectionist again. He basically asks her like, "Are you ever going to get away from the farm?" And she's like, "Oh, I don't think I can get away with my parents still alive." And then like a bell kind of goes off in her brain. "Yeah, I could just take care of them and then my problems would be over." Back home the next day and we see that she almost feeds her poor father to an alligator, but thankfully her mom interrupts that. Earlier in the movie, we did meet Mitzi. Mitzi is Pearl's sister-in-law and she lets Pearl know that there's like an audition happening in town at a church for like a Christmas chorus. So Pearl is extremely excited and she sees this as her ticket out. She knows like her mom is not going to allow her to do that. Later on at the dinner table, says she's going to go audition whether she likes it or not, but her mom is very concerned because she lets her know like, "I know what you do when you don't think people are paying attention to you. You do terrible things and you're a danger to other people." So we don't really know exactly what Pearl's been up to, but we do know that she's like unalived some animals and stuff like that. So clearly she's a pretty dangerous person. She can't emotionally regulate herself, so she's a very dangerous person, and they get into an argument. Her mother lets her know like, "You're gonna fail." They have like this altercation where she pushes her mother into the fire, and then she pushes her mother into the basement to suffer in the basement, and she just leaves the house and goes back to the projectionist. They have a nice night together and he drives her back to her house. Immediately when they get back to the house, like he knows something's off because there's like rotting food. Her father has just been left at that dinner table all night. It's very awkward. They go up to her room and they start like making out, but he hears grunts. He hears like moaning in the basement and he's like, "Hey, what's that?" And she's like, "Oh, don't worry, there's a dog down there, don't worry about that." But then later on they're in the barn and he makes some comment about a dog and she's like, "Oh, I don't have a dog." And so he's like, "I think I'm gonna go." So he tries to leave, but Pearl catches on immediately and she starts freaking out on him. She's like, "Why do you want to leave me? I thought you liked me. What are you doing?" He's like, "You're scaring me, Pearl." And so he tries to leave, but unfortunately she gets to him before he can leave and she unalives him. She starts to get ready for audition, so she pushes him and his car into the swamp and she goes and takes care of her father. She like gets him all cleaned up and then she smothers him with a pillow. And then later she says like one last goodbye to her mother who's still suffering in the basement. She's still alive. She goes to the audition and sees Mitzi there, and Mitzi asks her to like switch places with her, and she's like, "Sister-in-laws have to stick together, right?" And Pearl has like this, "Oh yeah, we're sister-in-laws, that's nice." I just feel like Pearl gravitates towards people immediately when they show her any sort of kindness, but then turns on them extremely quickly. We see her go into her audition and she puts on this like truly unhinged audition. And then of course the people that were running the audition are like, "Yeah, I think we're going in a different direction and we are looking for someone blonde." And so she freaks out and she lets them know she's a star. Please, I'm a star! But they drag her off stage and that leaves her and Mitzi. After Mitzi's audition, she comes out to find Pearl and she drives her home because Pearl is just beside herself. She leads Pearl inside the house and they're talking and Pearl says something about her brother, and so Mitzi's like, "Oh, if you need to talk to him, feel free to talk to me that way." So that leads Pearl into this really long monologue where she starts admitting all these crimes. She lets Mitzi know that like she cheated on her brother. She was so angry with her brother because she was with child. She didn't want to do that and then she ended up losing it. She admits to being murderous and having like no regard for human life. life and how she thinks there's something wrong with her because everyone else seems to have something that she's missing. Through this entire monologue, though, it's very clear that Pearl's fear is that this is all she'll ever be, that she'll always be stuck at this farm, and that's all she'll ever have. It's, that she deals with a lot of jealousy. Mitzi's just sitting there like, okay, I need to get out of here. Because Pearl's basically admitted to unaliving people. I see Pearl kind of snap out of it at one point and realize like, oh, I'm talking to Mitzi. And Mitzi's like trying to back out of the situation, and Pearl congratulates her on getting the part. And Mitzi first tries to deny it, and then she goes, oh yeah, thank you. And as she's leaving, Pearl starts chasing after her. And unfortunately for Mitzi, Pearl catches up to her and unalives her. In this moment, we see like a light go off in Pearl's head, because in her head, she's thinking, if this is all I really have, then yeah, I better protect it. So she knows that she has to get rid of Mitzi, because she just admitted to a bunch of stuff. Pearl heads home and props her deceased parents up at the dinner table, and you can tell she's just kind of losing it. And later we see her husband gets home from the war. He walks into the house and sees a truly bizarre scene, and she just stares at him, smiles like this for a good like 5 minutes. See, like she's thinking, oh no, Howard's gonna leave. But surprisingly, he doesn't, because we see that they're still together in the film X. In the film X, Pearl is like in her 80s now. She's a very old woman, and we see she never got off that farm. She never got a way to live her dream. Howard has kind of kept her on this farm, and kind of wonder if he's done so just to kind of isolate her from other people, to protect other people. But Howard also seems to have some problems. We see that because of their health problems, they're no longer able to kind of run the farm. So to get some extra income, they've been renting out their guest house to different people. And a movie cast of the adult nature have showed up to film something at their guest house. And Howard kind of lets them know, stay clear of Pearl, because if she sees you, she's gonna go crazy. So in X, we're introduced to a character named Maxine that looks almost identical to a young Pearl, one of the stars of the film. And Pearl quickly sees her and takes a liking to her, and she's like drawn to her because I think she sees the younger version of herself in her. And she lets Howard know, like, that's the one I want. And you don't really know exactly what she means by that, but we see her kind of stalking Maxine, just her as she skinny dips in the lake, and she almost gets attacked by an alligator. Later on, Maxine's kind of snooping around the house, and Pearl invites her in for some lemonade. And when Maxine gets up to leave, she sees like older pictures of Pearl when she was young. Pearl is just really longing to be Maxine. And during that night, we see Pearl like put on some makeup, and she tries to like seduce her husband, but her husband says, I'm sorry, I can't, because he has a bad heart, and he knows like if he does that, he might die. Pearl's just like beside herself with anger, and she goes out and she tries to seduce another young man from the cast who is trying to leave out of the farm. She tries to, and of course he denies her request, and she unalives him. And then this starts just a spree of unaliving. We see Pearl as she goes around the farm, and she one by one, she kind of takes care of the different people of the cast. At one point we see Howard trap one of the other girls, Lorraine, in their basement, and we see there's like a man in the basement. So we gather that other visitors have visited, and Pearl has like done things to them, so she clearly is very unstable. And later on, Howard's like, I caught this one in the basement, and she's like, that's not the one I want. We see Maxine like sleeping, and Pearl like climbs into bed, and it's very gross and awkward, and Maxine gets away. Later on, we see Pearl and Howard back in Maxine's room. Convinces Howard to like have a nice night with her, while poor Maxine is like underneath the bed. She sneaks out to go save Lorraine. She lets her out of the basement, but unfortunately she's introduced to Howard's shotgun, and she does not make it. Howard gets startled and he has a heart attack, and so Pearl is like begging Maxine to help, and Maxine's like, no. Unfortunately, the pew-pew that Maxine has doesn't work, and she has like this big thing with Pearl, but it ends up with Pearl falling and breaking her hip. And so Pearl is laying in the ground, and she's like begging Maxine to help her, and Maxine is like, no, screw you, lady, and she leaves, but not before running her over. Deep down, all Pearl really wanted this entire time is just to be loved, to be acknowledged. She just wanted something of her life, and we see that nothing has come of her life. She's always been in the same place. She's a miserable person that is very jealous, that has let her completely unhinged tendencies overtake her life. She did have a loving husband in Howard, but you do kind of wonder if Howard might have just been scared of her, so he put up with her just to kind of keep her at bay. Who knows? We'll never know what happened between the first movie and X. Like a good 50 some odd years have happened between those two movies, so who knows what she's done in between there, but clearly not that good. To see a very lost person that just really wants to be loved. Her mother just clearly never gave her that love that she so desired, but clearly Pearl has always been really unhinged, very unhealthy, and she never got that in check. So she just kind of let her jealousy run rampant. Mia Goth is fantastic in these films. Mia Goth plays two characters at different ages of their life. It's so good. She's really so great in this film, and Pearl is a very interesting character.